Uh, a lot of people can't be with us at this time, but they come in and watch during the week or something, and it's always good sometimes to go back and watch these, even though you've been here on Monday night, to if there's something that you missed or whatever like that. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start with the opening prayers, and let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Mm, there we go. Okay. Okay, so I'm just setting up my screen here. Okay, very good. So we begin with the altruistic motivation. So we recite this twice in English and then once in the Tibetan. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. O dagla dang war je pe dra no par je pe geg. Tarpa dang tam she ken pe bar du jo par je pa tam she ki so je pe. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she de wa dang den. Dog now dang dral nor du la na me pa yang dag pa zog pe shang ju ren po she to pa ja. Y'all can mute your microphones, please. The Action Bodhicitta prayer. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Deshe du sang ma ge gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Ma she bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Du de ring ne song te ni ma sang ta sam gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Transcend sawa dangur parje pe pao den lama dampa nam la kyab su chio. Yidam kil gorgi la sok nam la kyab su chio. Sange chom den de nam la kyab su chio. Dampe cho nam la kyab su chi o. Pape ge dun nam la kyab su chi o. Pawo ka dro cho kyong song me song yeshe gi chang dang dem pa nam la kyab su chi o. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Shangju Ningpo Chi Ki Bar Sangye Namla Kapsu Chi Chodang Shangshu Sampa Yi So Klang De Shin Kapsu Chi Jitar Nonggi De Shegi Shangshu Tugni Ke Padang Shangshu Sampe La Pala De Dagrim Shen E Patar De Shen La Pendandu Shangshu Samni Ke Gishing De Shen Du Ni La Pala Rimpa Shindu La Pa Ji O. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodang Soki Chodam Shangshu Baidu Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Jin Soki Pe Sonamgi Chola Penshir Sangye Jupasho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she de wadang de we gudang dem pa jorchi. Dug now dang dunal gi gu dang dra wa jorchi. Dug now me pe de wa dang mi dra wa jorchi. Nay ring shak dang ni dang dra wei tang nam la ne pa jorchi. Okay, thank you. That concludes the opening prayers for this evening. So we recite these prayers to set our motivation, what our intention is. And of course, that is to bring enlightenment to all other beings, all sentient beings. So we are doing these practices, receiving these teachings, and doing these contemplation practices on our own, our studies, and so on, so that we can be of benefit to other human beings, to make them, to enable them to have attain enlightenment. Does anybody have any questions or comments, anything you'd like to talk about before we get started? Either a new topic or something that we have talked about in the past weeks or something? Okay, very good. Okay, so I hope you all have note paper and a pencil, and we'll take some notes as we move along. So this is a continuation of what we've been talking about these past 3 weeks or so. So the first week we talked about the five poisons, and then last week we talked about the antidote to those five poisons. And tonight we're going to talk about karma, cause, and result. What those five poisons, what the antidotes help us to overcome those poisons, and for us to be able to do good deeds, or do we do bad deeds, negative deeds, and what the results of that is, so we can see how it is that we have this life, and the problems that we might have in this life, and what those causes are, and then how we can change those events in our lives and make them be positive events. So by understanding karma, cause and result, is the way in which we do this. So karma is a Sanskrit word that means action. So the action that we take as a result of some cause, that we have some thoughts, we are reacting to certain situations that are happening around us, and then these thoughts then are precipitating in our taking action, either in the form of things that we say, things that we write down, things that we manifest into literal action with our bodies, and like that. So, so the karma are those actions that we take. There can be good action, or rather, there can be good causes that, because of certain conditions, certain past karma that we don't recognize, things that have happened in our past, there can be good causes that we kind of twist, and we kind of think in a negative way, and we do a negative deed, although there's a positive cause. And the result of that will be a negative outcome, will be a negative effect. Likewise, there can be a negative cause that, because of our past action, because of our past karma, positive, we can take that negativity and we can turn that around and make that a positive result. So there is this dynamic that is always present in our lives that we need to be aware of and be able to see and be able to take responsibility for. These causes, the karma that we take, the action that we take, and the results that come from them. So we talk about that there are three kinds of results, or three kinds of karma. There's a good karma, there's a bad karma, and there is a neutral karma. So a good karma is something that we are able to take a good action, something that is happening in our lives, and applying it to whatever cause there was, having a good outcome for that. A negative karma, of course, can be when there can be a good karma, or there can be a bad karma cause that's coming at us, and then we carry through with that bad karma and have a bad result. So And then there can be a neutral karma where there's not a lot of power that is being displayed, and we're just kind of staying in a neutral position. So we'll talk more about that as we go along, because it's a little bit subtle. So we need to understand a little bit more background before we can approach that. So to put it in terms of what we've been talking about, when we were talking about that there's 5 poisons. Does anybody remember the 5 poisons and want to remind us what the 5 poisons are? And try and do it in the order in which we presented them, because that's important. Does anybody remember that? Okay.
Ignorance, hatred, desire, jealousy or envy, and greed.
Correct. Perfect. Yes. Thank you very much. And do you remember the antidotes for those 5 poisons? What was the antidote for ignorance?
Education.
Right? And what would be the antidote for hatred?
Loving kindness.
Correct. And for desire?
Um, Getting an objective point of view.
Yes. And jealousy?
Development of fearlessness.
Correct. Unimpededness, fearlessness. Yes. And the last one was greed.
Generosity.
Generosity. Yes. So, yes, Kate.
So I do sometimes have a little trouble remembering the distinction between jealousy or envy and greed. So could you just quickly go over that again?
Sure. Jealousy is the result of feeling inadequate and having a covetedness where we're coveting something that other people have, or somebody demonstrates, or some possession that they have, or something like that, and you're jealous of them. You want what they have. And the jealousy is born in the fact that we have this poor sense of well-being ourselves, that we can't have that, because we have this this notion in the back of our head, so to speak, that says you're not worthy of that. You can't have that. So we're jealous of that, or we're envious of that. And that sense of poor well-being continues in our life and so on, and begins to take root and just kind of pulls us down. It becomes an anchor on ourselves, being able to be free and being able to be happy and be liberated and so on. That sense of poor well-being becomes a suffering for ourselves. Greed, on the other hand, is something where we've been successful, and we've got a good place in the community, maybe, or we've got a big bank account, or a good bank account, or we've got nice possessions. We have nice house, nice car, clothing, a job, maybe nice family relationship, and so on. And we don't want to share that. We hold on to it. Whatever it took for us to be able to accumulate those things was something that we don't want to share with other people. Don't want to share the techniques in which we develop those things, because we have a feeling that if we share that with other beings, we're going to lose it ourselves. So there's a selfishness that is, directly implied with the greediness, that I want to hold on to this. And so out of that comes a misery of stinginess, that we become miserable, just hoarding and holding on to things and so on. So it seems to me that there's a quite a difference between the jealousy aspect and the greedy aspect. What do you think, Kate?
Yes, that was a helpful review, and I feel like I understand a little better both how they're different from each other and how they're distinct from our desire, which is a very different poison.
Yes, yes. Well, they all, they all kind of can work together, and they all come out of ignorance. So ignorance is like the root of all these poisons. Before I go there, I just want to make one point that with the greed, talking about the greed, that out of this greediness, because we have this power, we have a position in our work, or a position in our family or something like that, and we're holding on to that, we're being greedy with that, we can develop pride. So very often pride can be considered as one of the poisons, because of, we start believing that we're unique and that we're special, and we have this pridefulness because of that, and we don't want to share that. So the pride kind of is indicated through this greediness. So just keep that in your mind as well, because we'll explore that later in this conversation, or maybe next week, but we'll be talking about that. So,
Lance,
yes, sir.
aren't just to clarify in my mind, aren't desire and attachment the same thing?
Yes. Desire and attachment. Yes. So we could say sometimes desire, attachment, lust, passion, can all be synonyms for that desire, that wanting to have things, and grasping and clinging. The clinging would be like the greediness, but the grasping would be that desire, wanting to have those things. Yes. Does that?
Conditioned to do that every day.
I beg your pardon?
That's it's very, very tough for all of us, because it just comes, we're conditioned by what comes at us in various ways every day to do that. We're told to do it.
Well, that's right, and we're tantalized by it all the time. We're seduced by all the media, all the
yes,
all the magazines, all the pictures that we see, all the television that we see, and being out in society and seeing what other people are doing and so on. We're constantly being tempted by these things.
From the time we were children, we're told that you're supposed to seek these things. I remember when I played football, that desire is the word the coach used. He said you don't have enough desire. Where I was concerned, he was right, but I mean, that was just a general word.
Well, that's correct.
You don't want it enough.
Well, but also saying that, I mean, there's definitely negative desire, no question about that. But there's also, I make a distinction with aspirations. If we have an aspiration to do something better for ourselves, in other words, to have an aspiration to learn and practice the Dharma, for instance, an aspiration to be able to help other beings, you could say that it's a desire to do that, but I try and make that distinction that it's an aspiration to do that, so it has a more positive connotation to it.
Thank you.
So that's taking a negative cause, a desire cause, but saying, okay, I'm going to think of it as an aspiration to do good, and then that becomes a positive cause to do something. And that's good. But then if we attach to it, if we say, oh, I'm doing these things for other people, and aren't I a wonderful person? And by doing this, then that becomes an attachment. That becomes a desire. That becomes, something that we take pride in, or we become greedy with, or something like that. So you were right before by saying that these things, they interconnect with each other. They're not just pure one thing or another. They become intertwined with each other, these poisons and so on. So we're looking at them in their purest sense, in their simplest sense, but they happen working together all the time. So likewise, going back to talking about ignorance now, ignorance is the root of all these poisons. Is the root that if we knew what Dharma. I beg your pardon? I'm sorry, were somebody saying something? Oh, okay. Would you mute your microphones, please? There you go. Thank you. Um, so talking about ignorance and saying that if we understood what it is that we don't know, the other poisons and so on, or that we're even ignorant, then we might be able to correct ourselves a lot better. But as we say, we don't know what we don't know. So we begin to live in a delusion. We begin to live a life where we think we know, and we don't need to learn anything more. I mean, speaking for myself, and I know a number of people who, when they when they middle aged, they're in their 40s, 50 years old, they've had a family, they've had jobs, they've got some possessions, they've got a bank account, they're feeling pretty good about themselves. And their career is very solid, and maybe they're working in a company of people and so on, and they have a place in that and so on. And they start thinking, oh, I got this sussed out. I don't need to grow anymore. I don't need to learn any more books. I don't need to learn any more philosophy or anything. I've got it made. And we begin to believe this delusion that we're good, healthy human beings who are doing this, and not realizing what it is that we might have done to get to where we are, and what it is that we're isolating ourselves from. So this delusion, you see, is something that we have to cut through. We have to break through and realize we're always need to be on the threshold of learning something new. We always have to be looking for something that is going to, expand our knowledge base. And so that's one of the great things about being a human being, is that we can change, and that we continue changing, we continue growing throughout our whole entire lifespan. So, so that's a huge part of overcoming the ignorance. And as Amy said, told us before, that the antidote to ignorance is our education, is always looking for something that is new, something that is going to expand our knowledge, something that is going to refine what we think we already know, because we think we have meanings for things, but then as we move along, we find out, well, maybe there's a deeper meaning, maybe there's an alternative meaning that is more useful to us, or one that we've been following that was bad for us, but we find that there's a better way to understand certain situations, certain things that we do, and so on, certain thoughts. So to be educating ourselves, to be purifying ourselves, and that's an important word, to be saying that we're purifying ourselves. We're purifying our physical body. We're eating better. We're reading and studying and taking in teachings and contemplating better, which is purifying our intellectual mind. But we're also opening up our heart center, opening up our spiritual body, and purifying what that is and how that activates, how we can do that. We may be spiritual beings. We're spiritual beings whether we recognize it or not. But there is a trap about being a spiritual being, and that is we can develop spiritual pride. That we can start thinking, oh, I've accomplished this, I've accomplished that, I understand these prayers, I can do these practices, I'm better than other people. And that is a spiritual pride that is a very serious trap that we can get into, that becomes difficult for us to be able to break through. And fundamentally, that's why we need teachers. That's why we need brothers and sisters. That's why the altruistic motivation is so important for us, because sometimes we kind of get caught in our isolation and our delusion, and it's our teachers, it's our brothers and sisters that kind of remind us, oh, you've kind of wandered over here in this direction here, and you've kind of got lost a little bit. Maybe you need to open up your eyes a little bit more, contemplate a little bit more, look at what it is that you're doing, and so on, and purify your spirituality, as well as purifying your intellect or purifying your body, eating better, thinking better, etc., like that. So the delusion is something that we need to be aware of. as it manifests, it can become those delusions, that ignorance can become a cause for us to do negative karma, karma being the action that we take. So we can do things out of delusion. We can do things out of ignorance, thinking that we're doing something good, but actually we may be doing more harm than good. An example of that might be that here we are, we're practicing, we're reading, we're studying the Dharma and so on, and we encounter somebody, maybe in our family or maybe our group of friends or something like that, and we see that they're having a difficult time, and we can see that they are creating their own suffering or maybe the suffering of others around them or something like that, and we choose to kind of interfere. We say, oh, we're going to help them, we're going to correct them, without them coming to you and saying, oh, can you help me with this? It's you coming to them and saying, oh, I need to be able to intercept with them and be able to help them. And sometimes if they're not ready for that, that can push them further away. And then that damages them because it makes them think, oh, wow, this friend of mine, this family member, whatever, who is a Buddhist and who is trying to tell me about the Buddhism and so on, is just, I don't like that. And it's just driving me further away. Why are they foisting this upon me? And then that becomes an impingement on yourself, because now they are talking to other people and they're saying, oh, so and so is saying these things and everything, and I really don't like it. And you got to beware. You shouldn't go near them. You shouldn't talk to them about anything like that, because they might try and correct you all the time. And then that again becomes an impingement on you, because you think, oh, wow, I'm losing my friends. Oh, wow, people aren't talking to me. Oh, wow, maybe I'm doing something bad, or maybe I'm doing something good, and I'm so good, those people aren't approaching me anymore. And so you're developing this false pride that I was talking about earlier. So that damage, that suffering, can be caused by other people and can be caused within yourself by your pridefulness and thinking that you are doing something that's really good, and they're missing the opportunity. So we have to be aware of that. So, sometimes, a cause, when you see a cause to help some people, talking about with ignorance here, that maybe it's better just to quietly be able to engage your practice and to be able to know that there is a mantra that you can say, there is a prayer that you can say, there is something that you can radiate from your light that you have been recognizing, that you've been uncovering in your own heart center, and that you can literally send that to them. It's like a heart speech that is going to them. You're speaking with your heart. You're not speaking with your mind. You're not speaking with your vocal cords. You're speaking with your heart. And there's a subtlety to that. And that can change people. If you've ever met somebody who is really a genuine spiritual person, you can recognize them very quickly. Sometimes you can recognize them as you walk into a room, or they walk into a room, and they just have a different bearing about them. Or maybe you don't recognize that, but you're talking with them, you see them talking to other people, and you begin to recognize, well, there is something about this person that is radiating this warmth to me, the radiating this knowledge, radiating this understanding to me. So this is coming from the heart. This is not coming from the intellect. It's not coming from the voice. It's coming from the heart. Sometimes you can hear people speaking about these things, but it leaves you cold, because they're not speaking from the heart. They may be saying the words, but it's not making any sense to you, because for them, they don't have a true heart connection. They're just like a parrot who is just repeating what they've read in a book or what they've heard from somebody else or something like that. So it's not a genuine heart speech. So that karma, that action, then is something that needs to be observed and corrected if necessary. The result of that can be the negativity of suffering caused by people being pushed away, you developing pride or something like that. So that's the karma, the cause, the action, the karma, and then the result of the way that happens. So we can use that same formula with each of these five poisons. So the next one would be hatred. So we can say that there is a hatred that that is developing within ourselves. I've been taught, by my family, by my friends, whatever. I've been taught to hate these situations, to hate these people, and when I'm confronted with a situation, it gives me the opportunity to actualize that hatred, to say, oh, you're a bad person, you're not good, I don't want anything to do with you, or something like that. And then that has a negative result. It has a negative result on them. They don't like you, they don't like what you represent. And then it's compounding that hatred within yourself. It's reinforcing that hatred within yourself. So we need to be able to see the causes comes from a thought. The action comes from our voices, comes from our body, comes from what it is that we are doing, the action that we are taking, and then the result that it's having. Likewise, we can do that with desire. We can say, oh, I have this desire as thought. Oh, I want this thing. I want my next door neighbor has this beautiful car. I want a car like that. And so you start doing the things that you need to have a car like that. Maybe you get a second job or something, and it's causing suffering for you to do that. And then you finally get the car, you take the action, you get the car, and then you find out that there's much more complication about having that car than you imagined before. So now the result is now you have more suffering because you have to take care of this materialistic thing, this car. You have to have more expensive insurance for it, and you got to use the more expensive gasoline, and all these things you find out start happening because you were ignorant of all this. You didn't understand. So by understanding that there's a desirous thought, then we take a desirous action, and then there's the result of that desire that causes suffering and so on. Now, to put those three things, the ignorance, the hatred, and the desire, into a context here, you can have those aspirations to do good things. And maybe that desire now being expressed as aspiration to do good things, and you're doing these things for these people, and you've been doing it for quite a long time and so on. But then something happens that is you do something very negative, maybe some hatred pops up in your life, and despite the fact that you've done all these good things, all this aspiration, all this good action that you've done, it's had all these good results, that one hatred act is like pulling the rug from underneath your feet, and all those good things that you've done have just been wasted or neutralized because of that hatred action. So an example might be, killing somebody or something. Zari, could you get your microphone, please? So it might be, hurting somebody, hurting an animal, or speaking very harshly, or punishing somebody or something, particularly in front of other people. So that one hateful deed can undo a lot of good things that have been accomplished. A lot of merit can be turned around, can be spoiled because of one hateful deed. So we have to be very aware of that and responsible for that and analyze this. This is why it's important to be able to develop a daily practice for ourselves, because it gives us the opportunity to reflect on ourselves in a neutral situation, in a neutral space in your home, or wherever it is that you like to go to do your meditation or your contemplation, to be able to recite these prayers, to recite our motivation, and then to let those thoughts that are coming up, those emotional thoughts that are coming up about what it is that I just did, or what it is that was done to me, and for me to be able to process that, or what's going to happen later in the day. Oh, I got to do this. I got to go there. I got to meet these people. I got to make that phone call. I got to write this paper or something like that, to prepare yourselves, because there might be emotions, there might be confusions there that are rooted in these 5 poisons. So by having this meditation, this contemplation time, gives you the opportunity to get that objectivity. And it's that objectivity that is what overcomes that desire, overcomes that attachment that we have, to be able to recognize our ignorance, to be able to recognize our hatred, to be able to see that, because we can see the results of those things, or we can anticipate the results of those things. So it's bringing together a whole network of thoughts and patterns that we have been exposed to, that we've created for ourselves, or that we've seen other people doing, and either have inspired us to do good things, or has contaminated us to continue doing bad things. So again, we have to take responsibility for this. Does anybody have any comments or questions about this at this point? Okay. So then we move on to the next 2 of the poisons, and the next poison would be the jealousy. And the jealousy is overcome by the unimpededness, the fearlessness, the developing awareness of fear, and realizing that we are just creating this fear out of nothing in our head. Just like we were creating hatred out of nothing, we're creating this fearfulness, this feeling of inadequacy because of our fears. So we need to be able to recognize that, and we need to be able to engage in activities that are going to help nurture our overcoming those fears. And we do it a little bit at a time by setting obtainable goals for ourselves, breaking through those kinds of walls that maybe we've created for ourselves, that we built for ourselves. That kind of, we think that it's defending ourselves, but it's isolating ourselves and causing us to go back into the dark recesses of our lives, of our minds. So this jealousy that manifests in this fearfulness, we're overcoming by doing things, by accomplishing things, and then having results and so on. Now, the results can be positive results, they can be negative results. We can find that, I wanted to have this thing, I wanted to have this car, as the example I was using before, and I'm saving money for it, and maybe I get the car, but then once I get the car, I realize, you know what? I simply can't afford this car. I can't afford the payments. I can't afford the insurance for it. I can't afford the time that it takes me to take care of this car. And maybe it's not a brand new car. Maybe it's an old car that needs repairs and so on. And it's just pulling down my life. Maybe I need to get rid of the car and get another car that is better suited for me, that's more practical for me. Another example might be a lover. We covet this lover. We covet someone that really looks attractive to us, and we want to be with that person and so on. And maybe that person is with a friend or something, whatever. But we're able to maneuver our way to be able to gain a relationship with that person. But then as we get involved with that person and so on, we begin to realize this is a high maintenance person. This is costing me a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of stress to be able to keep this person happy. And I really wanted to be with this person, but now I'm finding out that this person is causing me just such confusion and suffering. I need to break away from this. I need to stop this and stop, and then give it up, and then move on to another relationship if that's what it takes, to make us happy or something, a more practical relationship. So part of that fearlessness is being able to accept a mistake and to be able to forgive a mistake that we make for ourselves or that we see other people making. One of the greatest mistakes that I've seen people make in their lifetimes is that they go through school and they come to college and they have to borrow money to go to college, to go to a university or whatever. Maybe it's their parents' money, or maybe it's a combination of the loans that they take and so on. And there's a lot of manipulation that has to occur to go to college and to be able to get that degree. And then they get that degree, and then they go out into the workplace and get that job and find out, you know what? I don't like this kind of work. I've been doing this now for 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is, and I find I just am not really enjoying this. But meanwhile, I've told all these people about it. I've had to borrow money to get this. My parents have sacrificed to help me get there and everything. I owe it to them. You think I owe it to them that I have to maintain this lifestyle. I have to maintain working in this way and so on, but I really don't like it. And then what happens is you begin to live a lie. You build this delusional wall around yourself. And so whether it's this job or whether it's that relationship or whether it's having that car or something like that, you're deluding yourself by saying, I need to have this. My identity is wrapped up in this. I can't say I made a mistake because of my fearfulness. But again, if I can break through that fearfulness, if I can admit the mistake to myself, if I can tell other people, well, I got in over my head on this and I need to change. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to take another job, whatever it is. I'm going to have another relationship with somebody. I'm going to get another car, whatever that example is. So this is taking a cause of jealousy. I want this thing, taking the action that I'm going to get this, and then seeing the result, anticipating the result or observing the result and realizing that it's not what I wanted it to be, what I needed it to be. So I need to go back and I need to kind of fix that. So I need to change that karmic result. I need to change my action, my activity, and so on to become a more perfect person, a more pure person, rather than this conflicted person who's caught up in their delusion. So next would be the greediness. So here I have these things, I've been able to amass these things, I have this talent. Some people have great talent to be able to make money. Some people have talent to be able to play musical instruments, and some people have talent to be able to do artwork, and so many different talents and so on. And maybe it's to build a business or whatever, or to be part of a business. And we get into that place of operation that we're working and so on, and I don't want to share my success, what it was for me to get there. I may be faced with the opportunity to be able to train some other people to be able to learn my job, but I don't want to do that because I'm afraid that they're going to take my job. So I keep it selfishly to myself, and then I become stingy. I become miserly about that. I become a miserable person. I become a grumpy person because I'm holding on to that, and I don't want to share that. So that's a result from that greediness, from that activity of not doing something, of not wanting to train people. Or maybe training them, but leaving out some important information and letting them either to discover it for themselves or to fall on their face and be lose their position because they didn't do a good job, and then you rush in to be the champion who is going to come and rescue this situation that you knew was going to happen because you didn't tell this person that you were training everything that they needed to know about their particular job or whatever it was. So this greediness has this manifestation of this stinginess. So we need to be able to recognize that the actions that we're taking, causes suffering for other people, causes suffering for the people that we're directly involved with, maybe for your customers or your patients, whatever the people that you are actually working for, and then that comes back to you and impinges upon your peace of mind, your freedom, and so on. One of the things that I've realized over the many years I've been meditating and is even now as I meditate, sometimes things will come up that I haven't remembered for 25 years or something, a certain situation. And it's one of those cringe-worthy situations. And you say, oh my God, I forgot all about that and how terrible that was. How can I do such a thing? And we have to take responsibility for that. We may not be able to go to that person or to that situation and recreate it so that we can change it, but we have to bring it within ourselves. We say we bring that onto the path of purification, and we're not going to let that happen again. And if there's some situation that we can do, maybe the people have changed, some of the situation has changed, I'm going to do something to be able to make amends for that kind of cringeworthy thing that I did 25 years ago. So we have to allow that to happen. We talk about that as the ripening of karma. Situations come up that all of a sudden we didn't expect. That karma comes up, that negative karma comes up. Oh, I thought I took care of that. Oh, I thought I wasn't stingy anymore. Oh, I thought I wasn't hateful anymore. But then so-and-so moved next door to me with his 4 kids, and now that hatefulness is rising up in me again. You can see it in those many different kinds of manifestations. So it puts you back into the mode of purification. You thought you took care of it, but you didn't purify enough. You didn't do enough. More work has to be done. And we do that willingly. We take it in and we process that, and we look at it as an opportunity to further perfect ourselves. We say that our greatest teachers are our failures. If we do things very instinctively to do good things, that's very nice. It's a real blessing that we can do that. But we may not realize what it is that we're doing. We just take for granted this is what it is. But then when that negativity rises up or something like that, and you realize, wow, I'm really having this terrible time now, and I totally unexpected that this would happen and so on, that becomes a great teacher for us. And then we have to go through the vicissitudes in our life, the changes in our lives, to be able to try and correct that and be able to integrate that into our lifestyle so that when those situations arise again, we're prepared for that. And we're able to ameliorate those causes even before a choice of what action that we're going to take. But we're aware that there is a negativity there. We're aware that there's a danger there, and we're taking that, and we have a good result. And this precipitates itself in being a good teacher. Being able to anticipate what your children are going through, to be able to anticipate what your friends are going through, to be able to, what your students are going through, what the people that you work with and so on, what they're going through. You be able to see that dynamism, and you be able to have a better constructive place, a position in that helps everybody, and it's helping you. It's helping you because what you do for others is what comes back to you. And this is what karma is all about. You know, it's like the golden rule. What you do is going to come back to you. If you do good for other beings are going to do good for you, and so on. So there's many different, ways in expressing that, but I think you understand the point. And one of the things about karma is it's very powerful. It is a natural power of nature. If you look at your life, and you can see where there have been choices that you've gone through in your life, that when you made bad choices, how there was this power that kind of followed you along. Oh, I made this negative choice. Oh, I've had to disguise this negative choice that I made. I've had to suppress this negative choice that I made. And this power stays with you. It nags you. And it comes up every year or every 2 years or every 3 years or something like that. A positive thing can happen the same way, but we can develop that pride. But if we're balanced, if we let things go, that's what we're trying to do, to be a natural person. So this natural power, you see, is something that we need to recognize. There are other powers of nature. The other powers of nature are what we're familiar with the physical natures of power, the power of gravity, the power of electromagnetism, the power of the weak power of atomic energy, or the strong power of atomic energy, the thing that keeps the atoms, the subatomic particles together, and the power that is released when you separate those, these atomic and hydrogen, events that we have, fission and fusion and so on. Those are physical powers, and they're powers of nature. And the scientists are trying to harness all of that. But it's immense. It's incredible, this physical power, what it can do and so on, what the gravity can do and so on, and how the solar system is held in check by the sun, and how this solar system is probably held in check by other solar systems that we don't know about in the galaxy and so on. The permutations we just don't understand. But there's this other natural spiritual power of karma. And we find that if we do good things happen to us. We have a happier feeling. We're satisfied in life. Things don't upset us. We're more balanced. If we do negative things, we're always on the edge. We're always agitated. We're always emotional. We're always on the throes of having an accident or being confused further and causing disruption all around us and so on. This is the natural karmic power of the karma in our lives, of our emotions, the way the emotions can take control of our psychophysical drama within ourselves. So despite all the things that's happening in the physicality of the world outside of our body, this is happening within ourselves. And it's just as real as that stuff out there. So we need to take responsibility for that, to observe that, and to test it. We shouldn't take what I'm saying as the word for this. We need to test this ourselves and to be able to analyze this. And once again, this is pulling back from our everyday lives by setting aside the time that we do our meditation, doing our practice, and looking at this and having a system by way we are able to observe this, and the way that we can change the karma, that we can move that karma from, non-virtuous karma, non-virtuous actions, non-virtuous causes, non-virtuous actions into virtuous results. So that means taking a non-virtuous cause, applying a virtuous action that neutralizes and then has a positive outcome or a neutral outcome, that we neutralize that positive and negative. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is to have no karma, to have no good karma, to have no bad karma. If we can do that, we suddenly get into the mode of being peaceful, of calm, of having no pride, having no greed, having no jealousy, having no thoughts that I have to do these things, that I have to be fearless. All those things, all those dualities just kind of come together and just neutralize each other so that we're letting go. You've heard the expression many times, whether it's been in teachings like this, or you've read about it, or you've thought about it yourself, of letting go of the things that we're holding on to, or letting go of the things that we are pushing away from ourselves. We got to let it go, get over it, and just neutralize, and just be peaceful. Peace of mind, just be at rest, just be natural. And that's what we try to do when we meditate. That's what we're able to attain, is a moment of that peacefulness, of that quietude. And what we try to do is to broaden it out, to make it deeper, and be able to, once we get up off the cushion of having developed that peacefulness, we get up off the cushion and we take that peacefulness with us. We take that quietude with us. And we change our lives. Our lifestyle changes. Maybe I'm not going to engage in all that chaotic stuff that I used to do. I'm not going to have that job anymore. I'm not going to have that relationship anymore. I'm not going to be constantly thinking about what I'm going to buy or what I'm going to sell or what possessions I have and what I have to do to keep them and so on. I'm just at peace with myself. I'm just at peace with this life. And this is where the meditation is. This is what the meditation is able to help us to stabilize, that peacefulness. And the meditator and the meditation become inseparable. It just becomes one-pointed mindfulness. This is what it is to be a perfect human being, a realized human being. And the symbol for that is the Buddha. The Buddha is a perfectly realized, peaceful human being. It's not a supernatural being. It's not a Superman that is out there. It is a Superman or a Superwoman that is within ourselves. And we find that we have all the masculine aspects, we have all the feminine aspects within ourselves. And that's a very important feature of finding that balance, of finding that peacefulness. So we ask ourselves, well, what is it to be a good person? How do we judge being a good person? What is it that we judge these causes, these actions, and these results? So we talk about virtues and non-virtues. Does anybody have any questions or comments before I continue on? Okay. I'm going to put up a screen share. Excuse me, one moment. Maybe I gotta collapse this. Where is? There we go. Why is this not letting me see that? Sorry. There we go. Okay. Are you seeing this, the 10 virtues, the 10 non-virtues?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay. All right. So here we are. So here is a guide that is very important. We need to learn this. This is something that we need to understand. This is so basic, so fundamental. We maybe have heard these things as we've grown up, but we've taken them for granted. And now that we're as old as we are now, whatever age we are as adults and so on, we take these things for granted. But we can't afford to let ourselves become delusional with our success. We need to understand these things. So, so there are 10 non-virtues and there are 10 virtues. There's 3 of the body, and there's 4 of the speech, and there's 3 of the mind. So you've heard us talk about that we have our physical body. We have our body when we go om. And then we have our speech, which is the intellectual mind that is being actualized through our speech. So we have our speech, and then we have the mind. And here, the mind that we are talking about is our spiritual mind, our open mind. And so there's a connection point between our intellectualism and our spirituality. And that can get contaminated, and that needs to be purified. So we need to recognize that the 10 virtues and the 10 non-virtues, there's 3 of the body, 4 of the speech, and 3 of the mind. This is very important. I suggest you write this down. So the Buddha's 3 root precepts in learning this and understanding this is, number 1, do no evil whatsoever. Practice virtue perfectly and tame your mind completely. So do no evil whatsoever. So no matter what we're confronted with, if we know these 10 non-virtues, we're going to be able to make a judgment as to what we're thinking about doing, what the cause is, and is there evil that is going to come out of this. You don't want to use the word evil, you want to use unwholesomeness or something like that is fine. But the point is that we're going to do virtuous deeds. We're not going to do negative deeds whatsoever for any reason whatsoever. We're going to practice this virtue perfectly, even at the risk of our own life, even at the risk of our own temporary happiness. I'm not going to contaminate my virtue, my integrity by doing something non-virtue that makes me think I'm getting over on somebody or I'm doing something good for myself selfishly. I'm going to err on the side of virtue. And I'm going to tame my mind completely. So taming my mind means that my mind has all this stuff going around in it. And what we're doing through the Dharma is learning what all those choices are, what all those possibilities we have in our ordinary human mind. And we're trying to tame that. We're trying to control our mind. Right now, for most of us, I think, our minds are just chaotic. They're just going from this thing to another. It's like we talk about the monkey mind. You know, we talk about a monkey who's up in a tree and he's just reaching from one banana, takes a bite out of the banana, reaches up, takes another banana, and takes a flight, then jumps from the tree to another tree, maybe goes to an orange tree or something like that. The point is that he's never satisfied, just going from one thing to another. And our mind is like that. If I invited all of us right now to sit quietly and to meditate and to stop our mind thinking, we probably could do it for maybe 15 seconds before a thought would jump in our mind. Our monkey mind would leap into our consciousness, into our awareness. So we need to tame our mind completely. So this is a step in that direction of doing that, by understanding what it is that confuses us. So in this case, we're looking at the non-virtues and the 10 virtues. So the 3 of the body. The first of the non-virtues is killing other beings. It's a blanket statement, killing other beings, whatever it is. Instead of the virtue of that would be protecting the lives of others. So whether it's human beings, whether it's your mother and father, whether it's your family, whether it's people you don't know, complete strangers, whatever, people from a different lifestyle than you, people that live in another nation, instead of killing them, finding, rationalizing we're going to kill those people, finding ways to protect the lives of others, applying loving kindness, this hatred that is at the root of killing, being able to find the virtue, to be able to use the virtue for that, to be able to overcome that. There's something happening with my camera. I'm going to try, in anticipation for this, I set up another camera. We'll see if that happens here. So 3 of the body. So killing is the first, the non-virtues. Protecting the lives of others is the virtue. The second of the body is stealing, taking that was not given. Stealing, taking from others, taking something that doesn't belong to us. We can rationalize it in many different ways. Oh, I'm entitled to this. Oh, this is part of my job. I can take this home with me. I take home pencils all the time, or I take home more expensive things. I fill up my gas tank with the company gas card, all these different kinds of things that we can do. Taking that was not given is stealing. And that's the body. That's the physical body of nature, of around ourselves, of within ourselves, and so on like that. So instead of that, practicing great generosity and being able to say, oh, well, I can't, I would like to use the gas card, but instead I'm going to have to use my own gas card. I'm going to have to do this. And by the way, while I'm there, some panhandler comes up to me and wants some money, and maybe I'll give him $1 or something like that. To practice generosity, an opportunity instead of stealing what was not given to us. Be generous with what we have, and be generous by not taking from others and giving to others. Even if they don't seem to need it, maybe we can help them in some way, and maybe it's like paying back forward, as they sometimes say. So this is the non-virtue and the virtue. The third one of the body is the non-virtue is sexual misconduct. Adultery might be an example of that. And then here, the virtue of that is maintaining moral ethics. Now, this sexual misconduct, adultery, is culturally, we can say, well, that's in the case of married relationship and so on like that. But the sexual misconduct can be even more harmful if it's forced from one being onto another being. Maybe it's an adult forcing a youngster, and terrible things. I mean, I don't have to go into any detail on this, but there's terrible sexual misconduct that goes on. And that if we develop proper moral ethics and practice those proper moral ethics, then we avoid that terrible non-virtue of doing that, because that non-virtue leaves terrible scars. It leaves scars on the perpetrators, and it leaves scars on those that have been victimized. So we need to be able to take responsibility for that. We need to be able to turn that around and not do that. And if we have engaged in that, if we've been the victim of that, we have to find a peace within ourselves. We have to allow that ripening of that karma to come up into our lives, into our meditation, and to look at that four square, and to not allow that to be something that is suppressing us, that is going to harm us. We have to bring light to that. We have to bring education to that. We have to take it out of the suppressive delusion that it didn't happen and allow it to come up. and recognize that. It's the only way that we're going to be able to heal it, to be able to get to the moral ethics. And there may be a scar there. There may be a sensitivity there. But at the same time, there's going to be a strength there. So we need to be able to do that. So now we go to the four of the speech, the four non-virtues and the four virtues of the speech. So the speech is the actualization of the brain, of the intellect. So the first and most obvious are the lies that we tell, the lying that we tell to other people and so on. And the suffering that can cause ourselves and can cause other people because of the lies that we've told. But if we always speak the truth, always not to deceive other people and so on, that we are protecting ourselves and we're protecting other people from falling into the chasm of confusion, of darkness, of we don't know what truth is. We don't understand. But if we always speak the truth, and if we don't know what the truth is, to say, I don't know what the truth is better than trying to create some kind of a story around it, something that says, oh, well, I think it's this, that, or the other thing, or something like that. It only adds to more confusion. Every time we say something, it is just the same as if we're doing something. We're doing something with our speech. It's landing on people's ears. It's landing in their minds. We're hearing ourselves say it. It's landing within ourselves. It is an activity. So it is creating a karma, an action, and it's creating a result. So we need to always be neutral. We always need to speak the truth, not to deceive. The next of the four of the speech is divisive speech. So this divisive speech is the kind of speech where you're trying to divide people. You're trying to divide in the family, and you're trying to go to you have a proclivity that you want to be able to control something in your family dynamic or in your business dynamic or in school or wherever it is, and you're looking for people that you can recruit to be on your side. And then you start developing your own group of people that have these prejudices or whatever, this creating this divisiveness. Oh, we don't like those people over there. And they don't like us, but that's okay because we don't like them. So instead of this divisiveness, creating these wedges in which we talk to people that way, we harmonize with those people who are unfriendly. And we see this, we're in the midst of this right now. How did we get here? These past 20, 30 years have been unbelievable. I didn't grow up with this when I was a kid. There was a lot of suffering, I know, with some people and everything, and I totally understand that, and I feel bad about that. But I think that there are ways to be able to harmonize with those injustices, to be able to bring people together, rather than creating and propagate and keep these divisive things that are happening, whether it's in our neighborhoods, whether it's in our nation, whether it's nation against nation, the world against the world. It's horrible. And we see nobody's happy right now because of this divisiveness. So how do we get away from divisiveness? We have to find a way to harmonize, especially with those people that are unfriendly to us. And this goes back to the altruistic motivation, the first prayer that we recite in our daily opening prayers. And this altruistic motivation is, even though those that are coming at us with divisiveness, coming at us with hatred, coming at us with harmful intent and so on, it's those people that I need to direct my loving kindness and my compassion towards those people more than anybody else. It's easy to do with our family. It's easy to do with our friends. We don't even have to think about that. But with those people that are trying to bring harm to us, those unfriendly beings, those are the ones that we need to work on. We need to work on it through our own selves, through our own bodhicitta, through our own loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, finding ways to harmonize. So tomorrow, there'll be opportunities for you to do that. The next day, there'll be even more opportunities. And this is what we all need to do. And the greatest thing is to be able to have other people see us doing that. Telling other people to do it is one thing. You're only going to get so far with that. But if you can continually be doing this over and over again, more and more people are going to take you as an example of harmony, what that means. And this is what we need. This is what we need, great people to be able to rise up despite this confusion, to be able to find ways to harmonize. This next one, the four of the speech, is harsh words, slander, rudeness. So if we're talking to people and we don't like them or we don't like what they're saying, instead of yelling at them or calling them bitter names, or talking behind their backs, or saying rude things about them, that we should be of the virtue, we should be speaking politely and peacefully, kindly and peacefully to them, not raising our voices, finding ways to be able to illustrate, to make your points with them without getting in their face and getting so angry with them, meeting their anger with your anger. It only creates more anger. So we need to be able to find ways to express ourselves peacefully and politely, rather than using harsh words, slander, and rudeness. And we know, we see it, you can't help it but see it on the TV, whether it's on the news or it's in a lot of these programs now. It's unbelievable. Biographies and history things that we see, books that we read, stories we read and experience, our family dynamics and so on. It's all around us. And it's only going to change when we change. So idle talk. So the fourth of the speech now is idle talk or gossip. So this is talking behind people's back. This is saying things that you wouldn't say, that you don't want to say in front of them. Instead, we got to speak meaningfully, truthfully, in front of those people, with those people. It's very easy to gossip and to talk behind somebody's back. And I myself, believe me, I've done all these things. But when you find yourself talking behind somebody's back, to say to yourself, I'm going to call that person up as soon as I finish this conversation, or I'm going to see them tomorrow, and I'm going to tell them what I said today. I'm going to let them know that I said this about them, and let them defend themselves. Have a conversation. Speak meaningfully about it. And was I wrong? Can you tell me what I made my mistake? Maybe that was my mistake. I misunderstood, and I was talking behind your back and telling these people, and then I need to correct that. So being able to speak meaningfully, the correct meaning, the truthful meaning behind what it is that I was saying. So these four non-virtues of our speech are insidious. And the way that they divide people and the way they confuse people and manipulate people cause suffering in their lives and cause suffering in our lives. But here is four very simple ways of being able to neutralize that, so that we can put ourselves on a path of loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, bodhicitta, the holy enlightened mind, actualizing holy enlightened mind. So now the last group of this is three of the mind of non-virtue and the mind of virtue. So here we look at, excuse me, I gotta move this, I gotta collapse this. Okay. So here the first one is coveting, craving, and envy. So this coveting, this non-virtue of coveting of the mind, this is what I was talking about before, this jealousy that develops, this envy that develops in our mind. If we can rid ourselves of that kind of coveting, the desire that we have for these things, power, possessions, pleasure objects, etc., etc. If we can rid ourselves of those through the virtues of practicing unattachment, the rejoicing of others' good fortune, instead of saying, "Oh, I want that car," to say, "Oh, that guy, I'm so happy he has that car. It's so wonderful that he has it. I'm so happy he has that job, that he can afford that car. I'm so happy that they have that family. I'm so happy that he has that job, that he has that position, that he has that responsibility. I'm so happy for them. And I'm going to work as best I can uh, to develop my aspiration. That maybe I would like to have something like that, but if I don't, it's okay because I'm practicing unattachment. The important thing is that I'm happy and that I'm balanced and that I'm creating a balanced atmosphere around myself, that my life becomes balanced. I'm creating my own Buddha field. If I can live this perfectly, I'm living like a Buddha. And my life around me, everything around me is my palace, is my Buddha field. Everything is part of what it is to be Buddha. And what it is becomes simpler and simpler and simpler. Because the more that I bring things in, the more potential there is to contaminate stuff, to contaminate what I already have, to pull the rug from underneath of my feet, so to speak, by bringing in things that I don't really need. And now I have to start worrying and protecting them and so on. So the second of the three of the mind is harmful thought, cruelty, the cruelty of thinking about, well, somebody did this to me. This person hurt me really bad. And I hope it may not be me, but I hope that somebody comes and really crushes this person emotionally because they crushed me. They made me feel really bad. Maybe they stole money from me, or maybe they took my job, or maybe they took my lover, or something like that, or maybe they said things to me that just made me feel really bad, and for a week I just was miserable, and I'm still not over it. And I hope that somebody does that to them. I hope I can find the power to be able to do that to them, to be really cruel to them. I can find those words. It's not normally within me, but I hope I can find a way to be able to do that, or somebody can do it for me. And we hold that harmful thought in our minds for those people. Oh, they've been so terrible. They've been doing these things. They're waging this war. I hope that those people die 1,000 deaths and terrible things like that. Instead, that we have the mindfulness to be able to practice loving kindness and cultivate helpfulness, to help them to be able to recognize what it is that they have done, what it is that they are doing, the suffering that they are creating. We may not be able to directly do something with them that's going to make a difference, but it's through our heart thoughts. That if our heart thoughts are of helping other beings, of bodhicitta, and more of us are sending those heart thoughts to other beings, that has a power. That is the karmic, the natural law of karma that is spiritual, that is invisible to us, but it is a force, and it will help. At one time, this is going to change. At some time, this is going to change. We've seen vicissitudes. If you are a student of history and you could look at the story of mankind, that we've been through many, 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 many things like this over the many, many generations, centuries, eons, etc., where humankind has found periods of peacefulness and where they found times of great conflict. But in the conflict, there were people that were peaceful. And in the peaceful times, there were people that were conflicted. But there's always this change, and there's this dynamism that's happening there. But it's like a pendulum. You know, a pendulum goes from one direction to the other, from one extreme to the other extreme. But where does it spend most of its time? As that pendulum is swinging from one extreme to the other, where does it spend most of its time? In the middle. Right? It goes to the extreme and it's there causing havoc on either extreme, but most of the time it's in the middle. We got to get back to the middle. Humankind, people will get back to the middle. We may not see it in our lifetime because the damage that's been done these past number of years seems terrible, but it's going to be our children and their children that are going to have to resolve this. So what we do in order to help our children is fundamental in how things are going to be changed. So the third of the three of the mind, the non-virtue, is holding wrong views, selfishness, the wrong view of there is no law of karma. It doesn't matter what I do. There's nothing there that is going to rectify what I do. I can do whatever I want with impunity. I can be the worst person. I can kill, I can lie, I can steal, I can do all these things with no reciprocity. That's a wrong view. Things will happen. The law of karma is real. And things will happen because of my own demon within myself. I know what I've done. That Buddha nature, that truth is within me. And that wisdom may be blocked up. But at certain periods, it will rise up and it will show us how we've contaminated ourselves, the guilt that we have, what we have done, that we've been negative and so on, that we've been selfish and so on. So how do we help precipitate that, to bring that about? There's three of the mind of the virtue, where we engage in the perfect meaning, karma, cause and result, where we take up a morality, where we take up a system of philosophical thought of how it is that human beings relate to themselves and relate to others, and recognize that there are laws of nature that are spiritual laws, just as that there are intellectual laws and physical laws that we need to adhere to. And when we do that, we create an equilibrium. We create a balance for ourselves that sustains us through our lives in happiness. So these three of the body, four of the speech, and three of the mind, the non-virtues and the virtues. So I recommend that if you write those down and that you think about those, you meditate on those, you know, that this is what meditation is about. First, meditation is contemplation. We sit down, we recite our prayers, we set our motivation. If things rise up, our emotions rise up, we examine them, we look at them, and now we have a way of being able to understand them. We have the 5 poisons. We have the antidotes to the 5 poisons. We have these, the results. We recognize the karma that is created in our lives, and we have a way to evaluate this karma through these 10 virtues and non-virtues. And then we create this equilibrium in our minds, this peacefulness in our mind. And then that contemplation, if we have enough time, if we give ourselves the ability, that rises into meditation. And the meditation is the no thought, is the quietude, is the peacefulness, is the balance. It doesn't happen every time. It takes a while to be able to become stable in that technique, to be able to do it. But just as we do all the things that we do in our lives, when we get up in the morning and we go in and we do our personal hygiene, and then we go into the kitchen and we prepare our food for the day and so on, and we get our things, we dress so that we are able to go out and work with other people. We've got these routines that we do to be able to function as physical beings, as intellectual beings. But we also need to be able to do the things that we can do as as spiritual beings, people that are interacting with people spiritually. So this is what we're trying to do. Any comments or questions? Yes, Katie.
Yes, my question has to do with the second virtue, practicing great generosity. Sometimes people don't have much to be generous with, like monastics. These are people who've basically, they have taken a vow of poverty. How can such people be generous?
Well, you can be generous with a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be physical things. It can be teaching. It can be time. To be generous with, your folks or your children, to spend time with them, is a great gift. To be generous with teachings, maybe, I said before, to go foist yourself on people to correct them with the Dharma teachings, but there might be a time when, with your family or friends or something like that, and you're engaging in a conversation with them, that you're making the time to engage in a conversation. One of the greatest gifts you can give people is a conversation, and listen to them. The greatest gift that you can give other people is listening to them, to encourage them to speak. How many times do we sit down with somebody and you start talking, and you're the one that keeps on talking? You're talking about yourself. Or on the other side, they're talking about themselves, and you always are trying to get into the conversation, but they just keep talking about themselves. Well, sometimes you got to let them talk about themselves. That becomes the generosity. But then when you can, you have to skillfully be able to say, I'd like to tell you something. I'd like to tell you something about me. Can I have a couple minutes to tell you something? You've been telling me, and it's wonderful to hear all that. But let me tell you something about me. It would make me feel very happy if I could share this with you. So skillfully find ways to do these things. So it doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be possessions. But it can be teachings, it can be conversation, it can be just time to be together, taking a walk together, things like that. So there's a lot of different ways in being generous. Compassion, when people are suffering, to have generosity of your compassion, to allow that to come out. And compassion is the actualization of wisdom. The wisdom is the knowledge of what all this is. And the compassion is being able to actualize it for the benefit of others. So I hope that helps.
Lance, I have a question. This is Zara.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so as I was just writing down some additional notes for myself for the the ones related to speech, idle talk, and gossip. So as I've become more aware of that as a behavior, like how people use that to fill downtime, and it can be very harmful. Have you do you ever find yourselves in conversations now that I'm painfully aware of it, right? When other people are putting me into the context of they're starting to gossip, I don't want to be part of it.
Right.
And how do I, in navigating out of that, right? Like, so redirecting it or neutralizing it, that's become a struggle for me, where I don't want to actually engage in it. It feels like poison to me now that I know I don't want to talk about someone behind their back.
Understood.
So I had a question first. I had two things. One is, how do you handle that? Like, once you become aware of it and you know that it's creating negative karma, how do you diffuse it from the speaker, even if you have to listen? So there's a point of compassion to someone who may not know and understand the karmic effect. And then the other thing I wanted to ask was, in talking about someone behind their back, in a non-useful way just to talk to fill downtime, does it actually create negative karma for that person too? Like the person who's absent and not there, but you're talking about them behind their back.
Well, taking the second part first, indirectly, but I don't think directly, because they've already done what they've done, and maybe you're misinterpreting what they've done and you're spreading the lie. So it's your karma. You're creating your own karma. You're not creating karma for other beings. You're not changing other people's karma. You have to be responsible for your own karma. So we can't diffuse somebody else's karma. We can help them to see the error of their ways or whatever, and then they have to apply whatever remedies are needed to be able to fix their own karma. So we can't create other people's karma, and we can't fix other people's karma. We can only do it for ourselves. And the first part of your question is, if you know me, there's been many times I get up and walk out of a conversation. I just stand up and walk out of a room. When it gets ugly, I'm gone. In this kind of a situation here, we're all people who are genuinely interested in being able to help each other and understand and so on. So there's a willingness for us all to be able to exchange ideas. And maybe here is a place where we can kind of skillfully correct each other. But if you're sitting around a dining room table, for instance, and there's 10 people there or 5 people there or whatever, and the conversation starts getting heated and everything, I'll just get up and walk out.
What
And
if
that sends a stronger message than if I try and get into the conversation, especially if I know, I have an intuition, I'm not going to be able to change this dynamic. And that sometimes around that dining room table with a family or whatever, you're not going to change anybody's mind in that environment.
Have you employed techniques that are more direct, where if you're on a private conversation with a family member or close friend and just called it out and said, you seem to, like, have you actually called it out in them and said, hey, why do you spend so much time talking about this? Or like, have you thought about talking about this issue with the actual person involved? Have you gotten to that? It's to a point for me where I don't want to participate. So when I get on phone calls with people, I find myself rejecting certain calls now because I know what the conversation is going to be about, talking negatively about other people. I don't want to be involved in it. But is that an act of kindness? Is that loving kindness to tell someone gently, hey, like, you spend a lot of time talking negatively about other people, and I don't want to participate? Or like, how would you go about that so that you do that in a way that's useful and helpful?
Yeah, I would say something to the effect of, you've been talking, I've been understanding what you're saying, or I think I understand, and so on. But I have something I'd like to say to you. And would you give me permission to say that? Asking their permission for you to say something to them. And
Okay.
once you ask for that permission and they give you that permission, now, you've got a credibility. You've got a position of responsibility and maybe some degree of authority that you're going to impart on them, because you're coming at them from that direction, respecting their integrity by asking for their permission. And that means, oh, he's respecting me. But he's got something he wants to say, and I can make the choice whether I want to hear it or not. Some people don't want to hear it.
Thank you, Ann.
So that's my technique. Thank you for those questions, because I think they are very important questions that we all have to deal with. Yes, Brandon, did you want to say something?
Well, Lance, it's not really a question, but more an observation.
Yes,
And
sir.
probably not one we're going to figure out tonight, I'm afraid. But I had a real bad day at work, so perhaps I'm projecting a little bit. But I find that we were talking about envy tonight, and I'm not envious of cars or things like that, although a lot of people are. I'm envious of time. And one thing that I really want is I know that money equals time. But the idea is that if you can save enough money, if you can invest enough, you can retire someday and have all this time, and you can do great things like, read books and travel to Tibet or travel to Thailand, do all these things I want to do that I can't right now because I've got a job and a lot of kids. And so when you get to that point where you have this money that you can retire, you can kind of live the hippie ideal, right? That's what I want to do. But because you have security at that point. But it seems to me that Buddhism and the hippie ideal are contrary to the security. Does that make any sense? It's hard to explain, but
Well, I understand, but I don't think I don't think it has to be contrary, because there is a practical side to being a Buddhist or being a human being, and it's relative. So what's, practical for you and your family and your situation may not be practical for me or anybody else here in that situation. And everybody has to take responsibility for, their practicality, so to speak. I know for myself, I mean, just to give an example, and my spirituality came when I was in my 20s.
okay.
And I realized, wow, this is great. I was a hippie. This was great. I was playing music. I was living the life and doing all this kind of stuff. And people thought I was being irresponsible. But at the same time, I was being a human being. I was trying to do what I could do in my 20s that I couldn't do any other time. And I knew that once I became 30 or something like that, then I had to be more responsible. But this was my time to experiment without hurting anybody else. I was married, but I didn't have a family until later, so it was, and so it was in balance as far as I was concerned. But then there came this time when I said, okay, now I'm 30 years old. Now I've got a child. Now I've got to prepare for raising a family, and I have to prepare for the future, and I have to prepare for my retirement.
Yeah.
And I went through my 30s and 40s and 50s doing that, knowing that I was going to be practical about it. And when I became 60, I retired when I was 62 years old. And I dedicated the rest of my life to the Dharma.
Excellent. Thank you.
So we live modestly, it's and to me that was practical. That's what I wanted to do, and I'm happy I've done it this way. I'm not and I think about choices that I made, and I could have made other choices, and I could have been wealthy and done a lot of different things and everything, but it would have sacrificed, or it may have sacrificed, my spirituality. I don't know that, but I'm happy with what I did. So that's my point, is having I look at life as three parts. You have your early life when you're putting together all your formations and stuff like that. Then you're doing the stuff that you need to do. And then you come to that part of your life, that part of your life where you become, you refine everything and you become a teacher. You're sharing your life with others in a profound way. So that's how I look at it.
Thank you. That is very helpful. And what I'm hearing is that in terms of time and money, there's a middle way there as well, as we learn in Buddhism.
Yeah, whatever you need to do. I had to save money. I couldn't live off of Social Security by itself, so I knew I had to have a nest egg, and I worked for that. But it's not, millions of dollars. I can tell you, it's not $1 million. It's nothing like that, So, but it's being practical about it. My spirituality became more important than that aspect of my life. There would be the law of reciprocity, the law of karma would take care of what I needed.
There's a big difference between being comfortable versus needing the bigger boat or the bigger private jet or whatever. That's a whole different
I
thing.
think so.
I agree with you. Thank you.
I think so. Thank you for that question. Anybody else have a thought you want to share? Does this make sense? Was this helpful? I mean, was this something that kind of answered a few nebulous questions in the back of your mind, or did this become, some kind of a template on which to be able to develop a contemplation, meditation plan in your lives? And you see the significance of doing that.
Yeah, like I like how practical it was with the 10 virtues and not virtues and framing it in that way. And one question I have about karma, and maybe this is, I guess, more, I don't know, philosophical. Maybe it's not as important to my day-to-day life. But one thing that I guess my question is like, what is it that happens to us that is not related to karma? And like for one example, just to kind of give the punchline of what I'm thinking about, is like I'll work with some people, like someone I was even seeing today, is because I work as a therapist, like had pretty horrific like childhood trauma, and like the idea that like they did something in a past life or something, that like they did something really bad in a past life and this was like the result of that, or they caused this in some way, like it's hard for me to sit with when you hear these like horrific things that have happened to people, like children. It's like I don't know, that's hard. That's a hard pill for me to swallow. And maybe that's not what karma is saying, but
No, it is, and your compassion has to, rise up in that situation for them and for yourself, that you're being an agent of their healing. So having compassion for that, because you have to absorb that and to let that go, and that takes work, and that takes a technique to be able to do that, and your practice helps you to do that, and so on, in order to help them, and so on. So yes, that's part of the process, and Medicine Buddha is excellent for that, to be able to do that. So yeah, so all these practices, and that's why I love the Buddhism so much. It's because it talks about all these different aspects of activity, of being a human being, and then being a realized Buddha human being. How do we do that? And by bringing it in and massaging it, understanding how it works, and then and assimilating it into your own style is the beauty of it. It doesn't have to be this way for everybody. It's a little different for everybody, that you can incorporate it in your own way. But being sensitive to what you just said, yeah, I mean, that's very important. I mean, when you think of an airplane going down, there's what, 78 people just died last week in Nepal. What karma did those people share for that airplane to go down? It boggles the imagination. But it's not for us to have to know that. But it's there for us to be able to accept that these things happen. And we don't have to know everybody's karma. It's not necessary. They don't need to know our karma. But if we can do something to relieve them, when they lost their bodies, they lost their intellectual mind, they lost their memories, all that was gone, but their spirituality was released. And if we can communicate at that level through our meditative practices, meditation teaches us how to control our mind in order that we can come together with that spirituality that is indestructible, has no beginning, it has no end. It's unfathomable. It's beyond our human comprehension. But as we engage in the practice, as we engage in meditation, we have experience with that. And that becomes undeniable. And that's the invitation for everyone to have that experience. That's what the Buddha taught. The Buddha said, I can't tell you, what enlightenment is. I can tell you I've been enlightened, and I can tell you how I got there. But it's up to you to get there on your own.
yeah, I think for me something too that has been a problem. I guess a problem for me or something is like, I guess it's like with doubt or like doubt versus faith, or but like really in the sense of like I question things a lot, which is I think a positive thing, but and also I have a very like scientific materialist kind of streak in me too in terms of my worldview as well. That's kind of just push and pull a little bit. But like I have these that like couldn't it be the case that the plane went down because of this because of more material causes that happen, which obviously are part of it as well. But you know, whatever happened, they didn't check something right. These other parts were defective, and it didn't. And maybe it wasn't related to an alternative view to karma. It wasn't related to some deeds that they'd done or thoughts that they thought or something like that. But I guess my overall kind of point that is just being transparent that I struggle with that I think keeps me in a bit of this kind of like paralysis with my spiritual practice over time is like I get kind of like not paralyzed by it, but like I just keep it's like I can't like I have trouble just like jumping in almost, where it's like I get these like doubts about things and it's just like I over intellectualize things too, and it like it holds me back from just like jumping into the tradition. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a big conversation.
Yeah, probably more than one.
And it's a conversation that we kind of chip away at through Buddhism 101 and through the things that come after Buddhism 101, really getting involved in the philosophy and the doctrine and so on like that. But I want to make a point, and that is that what you first said, we're all here because of karma. We're all here because of karma. We're all human beings because of karma. We're not zebra. We're not elephants. We're not gnats or flies. We're human beings. And it's because of our karma. And there are many human beings who have no idea of what it is that we're talking about, or know that this kind of conversation exists. We're very fortunate human beings. And that's our karma too. Those beings that are ignorant of this conversation, it's their karma that they have to overcome to get to this point. We're working to become completely realized, so we have work to do that. And what we do now is developing the karma for that, because we are taking action now. And this action that we take now becomes the result of tomorrow, next week, next life, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
So, as I say, it's a big conversation, but we chip away at it. What we're chipping away at are the obstructions to understanding that.
Yeah.
And as we do that, it begins to loosen up, and all of a sudden, light starts coming through. Wisdom starts popping through. That light that is all blocked up because of our ignorance and our confusions, our emotions, the poisons, begins to open up, and things start popping up. It doesn't all of a sudden pop open like that. It does it a little bit at a time. And we need to nurture that. We need to cultivate that. Okay. Anybody else have a thought? Oh, it's getting late. Okay, well, we need to do our dedication for this practice, for this teaching. So I appreciate everybody being here. Frankly, we didn't get to another part I wanted to. I wanted to do another Manjushri part, but we'll do that next time for sure. Because the Manjushri part is the Bodhisattva of wisdom, is being able to take these three teachings that we've had these past 3 weeks and put it into this bucket of wisdom, that we are going to actualize as compassion. So first we have to recognize this wisdom. And so the Manjushri practice that we recited before, the Om Vageshvari Mum, is being able to help us to do that. So I want to tie this together with that practice. So we'll pick that up next week. Okay, in the meantime, let me get to our dedication. Oh, so I see, said the blind man. Okay. Let's see if I go here. I go here. Here we go. All right, so here's our dedication prayer for this evening. And then let me. Okay, so if you can read this out loud, recite this out loud with me, but keep your microphones off, otherwise we will be too much feedback. But recite this. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, bodhisattvas, yogins, yoginis, and dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate word of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Maras and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you all very much. I would love to have had a much longer conversation.
Thank you, Lance. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank
Good
you.
evening.
Okay,
Good evening. Thank you.
okay. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
Blessings
Thank
of
you,
divine
Katie. Thank you,
light.
Gavin. Thank you. Okay, talk to you soon. Thank you, Katie.
Love and light.
Okay.
Bye, Padre.